Starbucks today, doing a little bit of teaching about some of the services that Serv has available. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking about some of the ways we approach the cases that consumers bring to us. So the first thing I want to talk about is the seminar that we have coming up in March. It's going to be on March the 18th. And we're talking about family court and child support. So one of the things that's majorly important is us being able to understand how family court gets its power to create orders and warrants and things of that nature in our relationships or on our children, especially if we are married with a license. So I'm going to jump right into this so that we can understand what the seminar is going to be teaching you and how you can use these things for your benefit. So just in summary, what you're going to learn at this seminar is how the court presumes its power over you, why your child is your property and how to leverage property rights in your case, why you need to claim a political and an official status to dismiss a support order, definitions. We're going to give you some key terms and definitions so that you can understand how these pieces of information tie together to make sure that you are speaking the language of the court. Where to find the laws and forms to administer your own dismissal. And so we do have some ads online. If you want to scan this QR code, you'll see it on any one of our social media pages. You can go to our website, which is servincorporated.com, SERV incorporated.com, and you'll be able to find the information to get to this seminar. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and talk about is one of the major issues that the family court doesn't tell you about and how it's going to help you learn inside the seminar. So we're going to go over what licensing is, okay? Okay? I don't know if I spelled that right. Licensing from the state. Licensing from the state is one of the main issues that we're going to address. And when we come into a knowledge, of how the court system actually works, what happens is we learn that power comes from the license. And typically, the typical definition of a license is the authority that's given to you to do something that would otherwise be illegal for you to do if you didn't have the license to do it. But we understand that a license to be married is not otherwise illegal. So in the seminar, you'll be understanding, we'll be giving you sort of a deep dive on how the marriage license is causing the family court to be able to issue orders against you because they become a third party to your relationship or to your marriage whenever you go and get a license for it. So we're also going to be breaking down the roles, okay? We're going to be breaking down the roles of each participant in the court. So right now we have clerks that are usually involved in the ordering of child support, and also magistrate judges, superior court judges, characters like this, which all have roles that are defined a very specific way. So our goal is to make sure that when we have these roles defined, we understand what the official duties are for those roles, and we understand how those people are supposed to behave in their office. It's the reason why we are consumer advocates, because your consumer experience should be a certain way under the regulatory codes and statutory codes. So our goal is to make sure you understand the role of each person, especially when you're talking about the clerk and the magistrate. Okay, there's one other role here, which is the role of the sheriff, and he's very important, but the sheriff is not like any one of these other two positions. So in those roles, what we need to do is make sure that we are, again, understanding what the official duties of these people are inside their office, and how can we administer compliance by knowing what they are actually there to do and what they have the power and authority to do. So the roles are going to be really important. Another thing that we're going to be looking at is property. Okay? We're going to be looking at property. One of the things that you need to remember is that your rights are your property. And so in the seminar, what we're going to be doing is breaking down how property administration gives you the ultimate power inside of any court, because your objective inside that court is to maintain your rights as your property, and not only to maintain that, but actually leverage the property that you have inside that court, because there are many times where the court will try to administer your property for you without you consenting, without you really expressly consenting to what you came to do. So the basic thing is to make sure that you understand how the property rights should be administered and what it means for you to have this leverage whenever you are going against the magistrate or the clerk or the sheriff to state your case. So property rights is going to be major. Also, we're looking at some other government agencies that have a lot to do with your property rights, like for example, vital statistics. Okay. Vital statistics is one of the main players, the main role of, I would say, key players in how your property is actually titled to you. So when we get into our seminar, what we're going to do is break down your property rights as they have been registered by vital statistics. Okay, the county registrar, and I'm going to write this down here so that you just kind of can see how these people kind of structure themselves. The county registrar works under vital statistics. Once your birth certificate is issued to you, what they're doing is giving the registrar a title of your property. And so if this relationship is not managed properly between vital statistics and the county registrar, then what ends up happening is your property rights get violated because of your lack of expression of the law. So when we are teaching in our seminar, what we're doing is teaching you how to express a trust relationship, not to have any implied transactions occurring between the county registrar and your vital statistics. There's a very specific way you can do that, and we're going to make sure we show you how to do that. Okay, so one other thing that we want to talk about, which kind of falls under property, is going to be securities. Okay? Securities is a good way for you to stand on your property rights when you understand how the securities are adding up in your favor and how the securities are being created. Securities can be bonds, okay, it can be notes, let's say warrants, they can be trusts or transactions, trust transactions, any kind of agreement, a security agreement. All right, so if you're in the courtroom, what you need to do is remember, your securities are a form of your property. And so understanding how these things are created, who creates them, how they're being used, all of this is going to help you leverage a dismissal in your case whenever you're really honestly dealing with any court case. The basic rule is, how are my securities being created, who is leveraging that, and how do I maintain an interest in my securities, okay? And so one of the ways we're going to talk about that in the seminar is we're going to be talking to you about contracting, okay? Contracting is a major part of what happens inside the courtroom. Most of the time you don't understand when the contract is being created. If you're in a courtroom and a judge is asking you questions, every answer you give is like an entry into a contract. So our goal in the seminar is to teach you how to answer these questions. We're going to teach you how to remember your position and your status so that you're not contracting in areas where you don't actually wish to contract or you don't understand the terms and conditions of such a contract. Most of the contracts that you're going to enter into inside of any courtroom is going to be an adhesion contract. Your driver's license is an adhesion contract, and that simply means that all of the terms have not been disclosed and you have no other options. It's like a take it or leave it type of thing. It's either you get this driver's license or you can't drive or you can't go anywhere else. It's all or nothing. So an adhesion contract inside of the court is basically what you're looking at. A driver's license, a marriage license, let's just say certain securities, let's say you go to a bank and they tell you that the only way you can open up a bank account is for you to open it up according to these terms. That's the only thing that you can do. So your thing is to remember, when you're going into this contract, the idea is to remember only your securities that you have maintained an interest in. Only whenever you have expressed a contract. It can only be expressed. Okay? It can only be expressed. You never want to do an implied contract, okay? Any implied contract is going to be against your best interest, okay? Because when it's implied, it's going off of only performance, which means that as long as you're going to do it, it's going to be legal. That's it. You don't have any additional options. I'm sorry? No. You don't have any additional options. So your idea here is to remember how to express your contracts properly. You always want to express your contracts in a way that it maintains your interest or your best interest. So these are going to be some of our main concepts in the seminar for child support. We're also going to be going over a little bit about trust transactions. So like I said, trust is going to be a form of a security, but it's also a form of contracting as well. Trust and contracting are one and the same in a sense. Okay, because if you have a contract, this is only two parties. What you're looking at is a two-party transaction when you have a contract. Okay, but as soon as you enter into a three-party agreement, that is a trust. All right, and so when we're in this seminar, we're going to remind you how these bonds are created as trusts, using three people inside of the courtroom to create a bond or a trust that has nothing to do with you, especially if you have an attorney. One thing that we do not suggest is that you go and get an uneducated or untrained attorney, because what will happen is your attorney will be a third party on your behalf to allow or authorize the courtroom to go and do these types of securities without your expressed agreement or without your expression of the trust. This is something that we definitely want to stay away from. So in our seminar, we're going to give you the weapons and the basic information on how to marry all these things together for your own protection. Inside of a courtroom, you're being constantly attacked from different angles. You're having questions thrown at you that you should not answer. You only ask questions when you go to court. You should never answer any questions in a courtroom or in any engagement with law enforcement, because as soon as you do that, you're agreeing to their authority, you're agreeing to their jurisdiction over you, and this is a major mistake that you want to avoid, because our goal here is to remind the court that you have power as we the people. As a living man or woman, you have the power to remain interested in things that interest you, or remain interested in your best interest. So our goal is to remember to teach you how to express your contracts, how to remain interested in your three-party trust transactions, how to recognize when a bond is created or where a bond must be created, when you are signing off on a note which has cash value. This is what you call a cash equivalent. Okay, warrants are just issuance for money. Okay, so we want to remind you how these things all come together inside that court case, and eventually what you'll see is these are all financial transactions. Everything that's happening inside the court is all financial transactions. And so we'll give you an inside understanding of what that means and how you can leverage these things for your best interest. Now, another thing that we're going to be doing is talking to you about, and this may not be in the seminar, but of course, we have several different resources I'm going to go over so that you just kind of understand what we're here to do in general. It's not just about family court, because we're also dealing with, in the family court, we're dealing with CPS, people getting their children taken from them. So we want to remember that this goes far into the reaches of any court proceeding, especially foreclosures. So let me make you a list. And we'll talk about some of these things as well. My chicken scratch. So we're going to talk about foreclosure. We'll talk about CPS. We'll talk about, let's just say foreclosure and eviction. We have resources for all these things. Foreclosure and evictions, child protection services, and sometimes this goes by different names in different states. We also have a little bit of some resources on how to use your trusts in different places. Now this is actually going to be a key piece of information because what we're looking at is, like I stated earlier, your trust is a part of your, or excuse me, your rights are a part of your property. So when you have a trust which is governed by your estate, I want you to see how I'm writing this, because an estate is a state which is foreign to the United States. Okay? If this is your private estate, then it is foreign to the United States automatically. Anytime you create this, it's automatically foreign to the United States. And what you want to do is remember that creating this estate is going to automatically give you the power to govern and control what's happening in your trust transactions every time you need to deal with any financial transaction such as the ones on the previous page. So our goal is to remind you in any court or in any financial setting, remember that a court is a bank. Remember that a court is a bank. So your goal is to remember your estate is here to manage all of the financial transactions that happen under trust. Okay, so when we go into court, remember that you are foreign. You have nothing to do with what's happening behind the United States curtain. So you have to remember to create your own curtain, and this is why we have to express our contract. Because as a foreigner, the only thing that is law that's applicable to you is what you express. Okay? It's only your expression of law that applies to your estate or to your trust transactions. Remember that everyday transactions are trust transactions, and that'll help you to kind of guide yourself about what we're doing when we talk about trust. So we have several resources to help you understand how to construct your trust, how to use that in a foreclosure eviction, how to administer that with CPS, and then we're also going to be talking to you again, like I said, about credit and securities. I want you to automatically assume that I'm talking about securities whenever I'm talking about credit. These things go hand in hand. These things go hand in hand. So with credit and with securities, the basic understanding that you need to know is that securities and credit are, well, I should say credit is a creation of securities. You won't have any credit if you don't have a security. And I will say this is a security agreement. Okay, whenever you have a security agreement, meaning more than or two or more parties have agreed to the terms of this security, then it automatically produces credit. Okay, and so this is debt. Okay, this is the reason why we understand debt and money are interchangeable as well. Debt has a cash value, it's called credit. Okay, it has a cash value, it's called a cash equivalent. Anytime you have a credit to balance off your debt, that's where you have a valuable transaction or trust transaction. So we always have to remember that inside of our security agreements, there is the opportunity to generate or capture or maintain your interest in credit. Okay, so we're going to be teaching some very interesting concepts about this so that you understand what credit is, where it comes from, because it does not come from a credit bureau. It does not come from a credit score. Building your credit score and fighting with the bureaus is something that you can do just to sort of benefit yourself in the short term or in the interim. But your main objective is to learn how to leverage the securities that you have to produce the credit that you need. Okay, so we'll be talking about some of these things as well. We will not cover all of this in the seminar, but we will talk about it with our consultations and anybody who needs to understand this information. So we're also going to be talking about property law, like the deed to your house, how to properly accept the deed to your house so that you actually own it. Okay, property law, we're going to say true ownership. Okay, true ownership, because right now, if you're going through a foreclosure, you understand already what I'm talking about when I say true ownership. Because going through a foreclosure or eviction, it means that you are not leveraged your natural property law rights or your natural right to own property. Okay, true ownership comes from a proper administration of property law. So this is another resource that we have available to be able to teach you how to come into any financial transaction with true ownership and not tenant or renter status. Okay, your status as a tenant is never going to benefit you. If you're paying taxes, if you're paying rent, it means that you are a tenant. Even if you feel that you are a homeowner, if you are paying taxes on a thing, you are definitely now a tenant under the law. Okay, so the taxes, we're going to talk about taxes. Okay, we definitely have resources for tax issues. Now, one thing is, in your court case, the taxes are actually pretty important because you can use tax law in order to support your dismissal of whatever court case you have, because again, a court is a bank. So whenever you have a financial transaction going on, what do you need to do? You need to account for it, okay? Let's just look at this in true layman's terms, okay? As a former IRS employee, I can assure you IRS equals an accounting firm, okay? This is an accounting firm, so what we need to do here is remember, if this is an accounting firm, all you need to do is remember that your financial transactions happening inside of a court, they need to be accounted for properly. So we're going to teach you a few strategies that you can use to leverage your position in a court case. Because as soon as you start including the IRS and things that have to do with your court case, with CPS, eviction, foreclosure, and you start filing documents on the court for their role in the financial transactions, you will immediately start to see the court responding to what you're doing, because IRS is kind of like a weapon when you use them correctly for your administration. It's not a threat, it's just proper accounting, okay? And if you know anything about the accounting world, you know that there is an accounting standard, okay, called the GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. So we use GAAP principles, or the standard of that, and we also use UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code. We also use equity wherever it is necessary to remain compliant with all applicable laws, okay? And then of course we administer all of these things with, whatever policies, procedures, whatever else we can use for leverage. So I'm going to close with